All right, so let's hop on back into my slideshow presentation for today. So we're talking about the color wheel. And you've probably seen a color wheel in school, way back when, in elementary school, down in the art room. I know I taught elementary art for 1 year, and I had a ginormous color wheel that I made and put up in my classroom for my students. And I did a lot of color theory with them. And I used to say to them, now, if any of you go on to be graphic designers, you can say that Miss Mack is the one who taught you all about the different colors on the color wheel. And they were like, ooh, graphic design, that sounds fun. So, we probably saw it printed out or drawn on the wall when we were kids. And then we probably haven't thought about it in a long time. But we're bringing it back for graphic design. So the color wheel or color circle, it's a basic tool for combining colors. And the first color diagram was actually designed by Sir Isaac Newton in 1666. So this goes back quite a ways. The color wheel is designed so that virtually any colors you pick from it will look good together. Over the years, many variations of the basic design have been made, but the most common version is a wheel of 12 colors based on the red, yellow, blue, or artistic color model. Traditionally, there are a number of color combinations that are considered especially pleasing, and these are called color harmonies or color chords, and they consist of 2 or more colors with a fixed relation in the color wheel. So first we have our primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. In the RYB or subtractive color model, the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. This is our blue. Red, blue, yellow. So those colors cannot be made by mixing 2 other colors together. The 3 secondary colors are green, orange, and purple, and they are created by mixing 2 of your primary colors. So again, green, orange, purple. Although this is my purple, green, there we go. Purple, green, orange, there we go. All right. Sorry about that, I went across. And then we have our tertiary colors, which are created by mixing a primary and a secondary color. So that's where you get your red purple, your blue purple, your blue green, your yellow green, your yellow orange, your red orange. So in theory, primary colors are the root of every other hue imaginable. The primary pigments used in the manufacture of paint come from the pure source element of that hue. There are no other pigments blended in to alter the formula. So you want to think of the 3 primaries as the parents in the family of colors. In the paint pigments, pure yellow, pure red, and pure blue are the only hues that can't be created by mixing any other colors together. Printer inks and digital primaries are also referred to as yellow, magenta, and cyan. So going back to that article that I had shared with you in the announcements, that's where picking the bluest blue, the science of it, that's what makes this article extremely interesting. Because technically, blue is a primary color. But what I may think of as pure blue and what you may think of as pure blue could be 2 different hues of blue. But chances are good, what I think of as pure yellow and what you think of as pure yellow, they're probably the same color yellow. And what I think of as pure red and what you think of as pure red, we're probably pretty close to each other. But that blue one has really been baffling scientists. So that's what makes that article so interesting of a read if you're into color. And again, next we have those secondary colors. When you combine any of the 2 pure primary hues, you get 3 new mixtures called secondary color. So I want you to think of the 3 secondary colors as the children in the family of colors. So yellow plus red equals orange. Red and blue equals violet or purple, whichever one you want to call it. If you have I think it's VTech dog named Violet in your house, like I do, because I have a 1-year-old, you're probably like, Violet, and you know the Color Wheel song where she sings it saying violet instead of purple. Blue and yellow is green. And then we have our tertiary color. So that's when you mix a primary and its nearest secondary on the basic color wheel to create 6 new mixtures called tertiary colors. So those might be the grandchildren, I guess, in the family of colors, since their genetic makeup combines a primary and a secondary color. And, you know, they didn't get very unique with the color names. Red and orange is yellow orange. Yellow and orange is yellow orange. Red and orange is red orange. Red and violet is red violet, and so on and so forth. So those are part of our additive system. So the additive system, it actually involves light emitted directly from a source before an object reflects the light. One of those things, I'm not going to lie, it takes a while for your brain to wrap around the additive and the subtractive color system. So you might have to read this over a couple of times before you get it, and then you still might not get it, and that's fine. It took me years before my brain kind of went, oh, and that's exactly what happened. It just went, oh, one day. So the additive reproduction process mixes various amounts of red, green, and blue light to produce other colors. Combining one of these additive primary colors with another produces the additive secondary color of cyan, magenta, or yellow. So you can see where they start to overlap. And then combining all three produces white. So television and computer monitors, they create color using the primary colors of light. Each pixel on a monitor screen starts out as black. So if you ever have had an old monitor or an old television and you have what they call a dead pixel, you would get that one black square on your screen that never went away. And that's because it wasn't lighting up. And because pixels start out as black. So when the red, green, and blue phosphors of a pixel are illuminated simultaneously, that pixel then becomes white. And this phenomenon is called additive color. Now again, if you are old or my age or older, you might remember the old television sets, or maybe your grandparents had one of those old television sets where it was a big box and it sat on the floor and it had like the whole cabinet system with it. And if you got really, really close, they would tell you were going to burn your eyes out. Although you're probably more likely with an HD TV these days than those ones. But remember, if you got like super close, you could see the little dots coming together to make the colors, the red, green, and blue dots, because things, as you got closer, the pixels weren't very small. They were rather big, and the closer you get together, you could just see the dots that made up all of the colors. And that's that additive system. So to illustrate additive color, I want you to imagine that there are 3 spotlights. One is red, one is green, and one is blue. And they're focused from the back of an ice arena on skaters in an ice show. Where the blue and green spotlights overlap, you get the color cyan. Where the blue and red spotlights overlap, you get the color magenta, that hot pink. Where the red and green spotlights overlap, you get the color yellow. And then when they are all added together, you get white. And imagine this following the skater around. And then, as I was mentioning before, television screens and computer monitors, those are examples of systems that use additive color. Thousands of red, green, and blue phosphorus dots make up the images on the video monitors. The phosphorus dots emit light when activated electronically, and it is the combination of different intensities of red, green, and blue phosphorus dots that produce all the colors on a video monitor. Because the dots are so small and close together, we don't really see them individually, but see the colors that's formed by the mixture of the light. Colors often vary from one monitor to another, and this is not new information for anyone who has, gone to Best Buy, let's say, and you stare at the rows of televisions up on the wall. All of the monitors the colors, when they're side by side, they all start to look different. And the interesting thing is, currently, there are no color standards for phosphors used in the manufacturing of monitors for the graphic arts industry, or clearly for television either. That's why they all look so different. Next, we have subtractive color. So the photographs, magazines, and other objects of nature, such as an apple, they create color by subtracting or absorbing certain wavelengths of color over time, and then reflecting that wavelength back to the viewer. And this phenomenon is actually known as subtractive color. So a red apple is a really good example of subtractive color because the apple actually has no color. It has no light energy of its own. It's merely reflecting the wavelengths of white light that causes us to see red and absorb most of the other wavelengths, which evokes the sensation of red. So the viewer can be the human eye film in a camera or even a light-sensitive instrument. So wrap your head around that for a minute. A red apple has no color. So the subtractive color system involves colorants and reflected light. Subtractive color starts with an object, which is usually your paper or canvas, and that reflects lights and uses colorants such as pigments or dyes to subtract portions of the white light illuminating an object to produce other colors. So if an object reflects all of the white light back to the viewer, it appears white. If the object subtracts or absorbs all of the light illuminating, no light is reflected back to the viewer and it appears black. It is the subtractive process that allows everyday objects around us to show color. And this picture is actually one of the very first color photographs. And you can kind of see along the edges the red, green, blue, and then up here is the yellow, where it all starts to overlap to make the color in the photo start to come through. And this is a scene, this picture right here, that I know very well. I worked for years outside of a printing press. Color paintings, color photography, all color printing processes, they use the subtractive process to reproduce color. In these cases, the reflective substrate is canvas or paper, which is usually white to start off with. Printing presses use color inks that act as filters and subtract portions of the white light, subtract parts of the paper by coloring it in with ink. Printing inks are actually transparent, which allows light to pass through and to reflect off of the paper base. It is the paper that reflects any unabsorbed light back to the viewer. The offset printing process uses cyan, magenta, and yellow, CMY, and then as process inks, and a fourth ink, black. And the black printing ink is designated as K to avoid confusion with B for blue. So that's why we call it CMYK printing. Overprinting one transparent printing ink with another produces the subtractive secondary colors of red, green, and blue. All right, so back to our color wheel. We have complementary colors. So those are the colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, and they're considered to be complements of each other. So an example would be red and green. And the high contrast of complementary colors creates a vibrant look, especially when used at full saturation. This color scheme really needs to be well managed so it's not jarring to the eye. Complementary colors can be tricky to use in large doses, but they work well when you want something to stand out. However, complementary colors are really, really bad for text because this is very difficult to read. And every time I show this screen, I always have a couple of students that say, well, I can read it, no problem. And that's fine, that you can read it, no problem. However, and I'm going to take a quick screenshot of the screen and bring it into Photoshop to show what I mean. My father was red-green colorblind. And what that meant was his eyes could not see red and they could not see green. They saw red and green as just shades of gray. So for someone like him, if there was text that was red and green on top of each other, you know, text like this, he would not be able to read this potentially, because where we see it like this and say, my eyes don't know where to focus, that kind of hurts my eyes, he saw it like this. And if the green that he saw was very similar in color to the red, like let's try to find two similar shades of red and green. So let's say, gonna find a green like this and fill this. Where's my layers? Here we are. And then maybe do something like this. So it could get really difficult for him if this green was a little bit darker. See what happens? Technically, I still filled that with green. You saw that originally I was in the green color picker. I just brought it down a shade, and it is now so similar to the red that you can no longer, the grayscale value of it, you can no longer distinguish it. So for someone like him, he potentially could not read this sign if you did it with red and green. So something to keep in mind when you are picking colors. There are people out there, and you know, who are red-green colorblind. So that is also, not only is it just jarring to the eye and we go, my eye doesn't know where to focus, but potentially there's a part of the population that might not be able to read what it is that you are writing. And when he had told me when he was learning to drive, he had to learn the order of the lights, red light, yellow light, green light, so that way if one was illuminated, he knew whether or not it was green or red based on where it was on the light. And he had a lot of difficulty on those lights that were turned this way instead of being up and down, because he couldn't see the difference between red and green, and a lot of time he had to wait and see if somebody else was going or if somebody honked the horn at him. So very interesting, very, you know, something that you might not think is that big of a deal, but obviously it can really affect you. And my mom was actually telling me a story not too long ago about how, you know, she could never stand when he used to dress me as a child. She's like, you had so much cute clothes, and there was this awful outfit that somebody bought you. She's like, and it was these like greenish pants with like this orangey red top, and every single time like he would get you dressed for some reason, he put that on you and he'd be like, I don't know why you say it looks awful. And I finally had to remind her. I said, Mom, he was red-green colorblind. It probably looked like I was just wearing gray. And she was like, I never thought of that. So, you know, again, you can see where color theory goes way past, you know, just what we're doing for graphic design here. It goes into a lot of different realms. All right, so next up we have our triadic colors. So those triadic color schemes, those use colors that are evenly spaced around the wheel. So you can see there's 3 colors in between each one that is selected. Triadic color harmonies, they tend to be quite vibrant, even if you use a pale or unsaturated version of your hue. So to use a triadic harmony successfully, your colors should really be carefully balanced. You might want to let one color be the dominant color and then use the other 2 colors as just accent colors. Then we have analogous color schemes. Analogous color schemes use colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, and they usually match well, and they can create a serene and comfortable design. And the reason that they match and they feel comfortable is analogous color schemes are often found in nature. So they're naturally harmonious and pleasing to the eye. You know, you want to make sure that you have enough contrast when you're choosing an analogous color scheme. So again, you might want to choose one color that will dominate and a second to support it, and then a third color, maybe along with some black and white or gray even. Then we have split complementary. So the split complementary color scheme is a variation of the complementary color scheme. In addition to the base color, it uses the two colors adjacent to its complement color. So this color scheme has the same strong visual contrast as the complementary color scheme, but it has a lot less tension. So the split complementary color scheme is often a good choice for beginners because it's really difficult to mess it up. All right, and that was my last one. All right, so again, let's go back into our course and let's take a look. Let's take a look at the assessment first, because I'm not doing a demo of the assessment. I'm going to do a demo of the assignment, but still, let's read over our assessment. And I'll give you a couple of pointers as well. So here's our background for this week. Color can make or break a composition. Up until now, it may have been difficult to discern why some color combinations seem to work and others seem to clash. So putting your new knowledge of color relationships to use in your composition will create a successful balance and harmony in an instant. The three color schemes this assessment will investigate are analogous, we just went over that, complementary, we just went over this one, but here's a new one, monochromatic. So again, analogous are adjacent or next to each other in the color wheel. Choose 3 adjacent ones. Complementary are across from each other in the color wheel. Choose 1 complementary color scheme. Monochromatic, however, that's slightly different. So instead of going to 2 different colors on the color wheel, monochromatic colors are varying shades by adding black and tints by adding white of the same hue, so the same color. So say from really dark blue all the way to light blue. Knowing how these 3 color combinations work will help you to create the effect that you are after in your design. It's vitally important to create color libraries to work from within the Adobe products. This ensures that your colors will be exactly the same from one application to the next instead of just similar. So for this assessment, I want you to have some fun and create an abstract geometric shape. So something like this, using only shapes. Draw circles, squares, triangles, organic shapes, a combination of them, and employ the principle of design, contrast, repetition, and alignment and proximity to ensure sound design choices. Do not have a stroke, so that black stroke that defaults in Illustrator, do not have that around your shapes. And don't go for something recognizable. The more abstract, the better. Once you have your composition complete, you're going to duplicate it to 3 artboards. So you have one composition, the same on 3 artboards, and then you're going to color them. You're going to color one analogous, you're going to color one complementary, and you're going to color one monochromatic. I also want you to label which is which on those artboards. So label it analogous, label it complementary, and label it monochromatic. So you're going to make them 8x8 artboards in Illustrator. There will be 3 of them. And again, you can use tints and tones of the colors. Utilize a complementary color scheme for one composition, an analogous color scheme for one composition, and a monochromatic color scheme for one composition. Then you're going to save those artboards as a multi-page PDF. So doing File, Save as PDF, and it's going to be a total of 3 pages, and make sure it is named appropriately. But also be sure to save your native Illustrator file if you need to make revisions. So I'm going to show you how you can start to put together those 3 color schemes in Adobe Color. So every time I seem to go into Adobe Color, they've had an update and it looks a little bit different than how it looked the last time I was in there. I don't know why, but it does. All right, so again, make sure that you are logged in as the same email and password for your Creative Cloud. And the reason why I say this is I have 2 Adobe logins because I had an Adobe login before there was the Creative Cloud, back when like there was just like the random Adobe website. And I accidentally logged in with just that one once, and I kept saving color schemes and they were not showing up in my programs. And I was getting mad and I was swearing at the computer and I was like, why is this not showing up? And then I realized, oh, I'm not logged in with the same username and password as my Creative Cloud. It's not linking to my Creative Cloud. As soon as I did, I had to just kind of import them in, and then I had 8 million versions of the color scheme that I had made, and they all went into Illustrator, and I was like, well, that's also a problem as well. So Adobe Color is really good at starting to make, you know, analogous, monochromatic, complementary, but it's not perfect. Yes, orange and blue are complements of each other, but you'll notice it got really dark here with the with this brown. So you might want to kind of bring that back into the orange realm. Maybe you want light blue. And you can kind of begin to move it around the screen, but there's always going to be a point where it's gonna do something like this, where you're gonna end up with yellow and blue because they're kind of across from each other. The complement of yellow is actually purple. So you need to make sure that you get the blue more into the purple range. And if you need to, turn off the complementary, just go over to custom, and you can start to drag your yellows, or click down here and start to, you know, make sure that you remove any of the blue in them or anything else, so you have a really pure yellow. And a really purpley purple. Because, again, yellow and purple, those are your 2. And then maybe that one. And then once you get it how you want it, you're going to save color scheme. And, oh, this is where they changed it. My themes. All right. So what you can do, go back over to create, is these 3 dots right here. You can actually make a folder, and apparently the last time I was in here was when I was teaching DES 114, so it did put it in the right place, but this is clearly not analogous. This is complementary. So I will save it as such. You can scroll down and create a new library and name your library. So you can name your library DES 114 like I have, and save it. You have to do it from those 3 dots. Otherwise, it's just going to save your color scheme into the last place that you might have had a folder, or it's just going to dump it into your random My Themes folder, and there's going to be no organization to your color schemes. It used to be when you hit Save Color Scheme or Save Color Theme, it prompted you with this dialog box. And it doesn't do that anymore. And that's annoying as far as I am concerned. So here's my complementary color scheme. So let's say that I want to make an analogous one next. And again, analogous goes over 3 different colors, but not 3 whole colors. It goes over, you know, like red, orange, orange. Those would be the 3 colors. And you can kind of get into the, you know, I would go maybe from red, and the furthest I would go is to yellow. or yellow-orange, you don't want to go from red all the way over to green, because now you've got a complementary color scheme in there as well. So the furthest I would go is from red to yellow. But you want to keep in mind, again, that this is, I gotta bring my, there we go. Drag it from the middle one. So yellow, there we go. That's probably good. And then I'll probably want to clean it up a little. I don't want any green in there because that's going to start to lighten this one up. So that's a good one, a good analogous color scheme. And again, I want to name it analogous. I clicked on the 3 dots and save. And there it is. That is not the color scheme that I just created. What on earth? Oh, Adobe Color is acting up. And this has been since the last couple of updates. So save analogous. Let's see what it actually made. Check this out first. Sometimes you have to double check things because, and again, Adobe Color, it's great when it works. I know, I'll update you later too. All right, so to get to your CC libraries, you're gonna go to Window, Libraries, and that'll open them up. DES 114. Here are my, all right, it is in there. Analogous, and the second time I saved it, I saved this one, delete this. That's in there twice, so it is in there correctly. So bizarre. I don't know why it didn't show it right. All right. Anyways, you always want to just go in there and double check that it looks right, because sometimes, as you can see, Adobe doesn't get things right when they do their upload the first time. It's like, you should update Illustrator, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not too happy with your Adobe CC upgrade. All right, monochromatic is the one that's really going to end up helping you out with. So let's say that I want to do this like kind of light blue monochromatic. This one I would not alter. You know how I said you can kind of go to custom and start moving things around? This one I would leave on monochromatic and do all of my altering kind of down here. What else I like to do is you can actually drag your squares and put them in a different order. So sometimes when I'm making my monochromatic, I like to go from light, dark to light, and then this one's gonna be like my super light one, I guess. I always hate that it kind of adds in that gray. Like you can drag it further away over here, maybe. But this is also why I try to put them in order, because you don't want to have like 2 colors that are like way too close to each other. This is a pretty good monochromatic scheme. So I'll save this one as the dots again. Monochromatic, and save. And that, see how these 3 look exactly the same, but I bet you if I go into Illustrator, here it is, and it looks correct there. So I don't know what is going on here with this. So just don't be too thrown off if Adobe Color does this to you. So that's how you're going to set this up. Again, then you'll have your color themes in here. You can draw your shapes. It's gonna default with that black outline, so you're gonna need to take that off, and then just kind of click on the color in the library and it will colorize it for you. And you'll do that when you're setting it up. So let's go take a look at our assignment for this week. This one I'm going to do the demo of, because you have to create a color wheel which seems a little daunting. However, I have a quick and easy way for you to do that. That's why I wanted to make sure I did the demo for you. All right, so let's read over our background and our prompt for this week. So the reason we're doing this is to differentiate between additive and subtractive color models. We're going to define primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. And we're also going to identify the following color schemes: complementary, triadic, analogous, split complementary, monochromatic. We're going to define tints, tones, and shades of color. So this is kind of like what we're doing in our assignments this week. So there are two basic types of color models: additive, color created with light, and subtractive, color created with pigments or ink. This is very basic, but big difference in how color is created is very important for a designer to understand, particularly because we are now using primarily digital or on-screen proofs. Additive colors are based on the RGB color system. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. These are the colors of light. All digital media, like your computer screen, your digital camera, your scanner, your cell phone, those utilize the RGB color system. When we combine 100% of each of these colors, the result is white, the color of light. Subtractive colors, on the other hand, are the colors of pigments. Subtractive means that we begin with white, paper, or canvas, and we end with black. As you add color, the results get darker. Subtractive colors absorb light, while additive colors create light. The result, well, you probably experienced it firsthand. Have you ever had a beautiful, bright lime green on your screen that printed much darker and duller than it looked? Which I can give you an example of this. All right, so I'm going to create a new document, and I'm going to make it RGB. And I am going to color this with the most RGB of RGB greens that I can think of. 100% RGB green. Boom. It's like bright, bright, bright lime green. But when I change this from RGB to CMYK, which is what would happen when you print it on your printer at home, or if you sent it to a printing press, which prints in CMYK, look at what happens to the screen. It gets dull. And the reason why is you can't combine inks and make that bright green. It's only a color that can be made on the screen. So, this is what happens when two different color systems collide. And it really is a common issue for designers today. So the solution is to always give your clients printed proof from your vendor before they give you final approval. And also try to calibrate your screen to match your printer's press so you'll get the results you desire. But most important, remember, what you see is not always what you get, especially on the screen. So tools of the trade, the color wheel. The color wheel is a tool to help us understand color relationships. Traditional color wheels begin with 3 primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. These are colors from the subtractive color system. Combine them with each other, red and yellow, yellow and blue and red, and the secondary colors are the results: orange, green, and purple, respectively. Then we have our tertiary colors. Those are the steps between the primary and secondary colors. Yellow, orange, and red, orange would be examples of the tertiary colors between yellow, orange, and red. So here's a great video for you to watch on this. So here's our prompt for this week. For this assignment, you're going to be creating a color wheel and then applying your understanding of some common color schemes to it. There will be 4 different color wheels total, each demonstrating an instance where one of the following occurs: complementary, triadic, analogous, and split complementary. So you only want to show one complementary. So I shouldn't see lines all over the page going from every color to every color because you showed all of the colors as being complementary of another color. Same goes with triadic, analogous, you're picking one. So we're going to do our color wheel in Illustrator. We're going to create a document that is 10 by 11 with 4 artboards total. So let's go in. Create a new document. It's going to be 10 by 11. And it's going to be, the orientation is going to be portrait, and I need 4 artboards. I want my color mode to be RGB for this. It'll just make life easier in the long run. We're going to create the color wheel on the first artboard utilizing the bright color swatches. So I'll show you how to do that. And create. So I've got my 4 artboards. And then I am going to need to make sure my colors are in order. Red, red, orange, orange, yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, 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 purple, purple, red, purple, and then red where I started. So coming back to the beginning. This is going to ensure that the color schemes work properly. And then as long as the relationships are in the order above and are easy to identify, you can have fun with this. Then you're going to duplicate your wheel to the 3 other artboards and indicate one color scheme. So let's just get started making our color wheel. And again, this is what your color wheel looks like. So it's a lot of work to try to get in there in Illustrator and just draw this. So I have a little trick for you, because everybody likes a little trick for how to do things easier. What we're going to do is we're going to make this basically from one rectangle. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen, one rectangle. I am going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle just like this. It doesn't need to be the exact size of mine, but kind of make the proportions, you know, longer, not as tall, basically. And then you can just leave it black and white right now. That is completely fine. Then what I want you to do is go up to Object, Path, Object Path, and then split into Grid, which is this option right here. And it's going to pull up this dialog box for you. So again, we have 12 different colors in our color wheel. So what I want is I want one row, this is my row, but I want my row to have 12 columns. And it's going to automatically do this math for you, which is fine. Just make sure that you have the gutter at 0. And then you can preview it. Make sure it looks like this and hit OK. So what this has done, it sectioned my rectangle I drew into 12 different sections so I can start to colorize them. And this might make it easier for you. If you need to kind of follow this, just kind of copy the colors in, just so that way you kind of know what you need. And then we can just delete that after. All right, so we're gonna pull up that bright swatches that it tells us to pull up. And I always have to follow the directions to actually find it, because again, remember how I was saying like you could just add the color swatches to the libraries. It was kind of like doing something like this to add the colors in and then find them. So we're going to go to swatches, which I have open. If your swatches aren't open, go to Window and then go down to swatches, and you want to go to those 4 lines right there. And we're going to go to Open Swatch Library, and then it is under Color Properties and Bright. Swatches. Open Swatch Library. Come on. Color Properties. Bright. And you can kind of drag it over here if that makes life easier. And you'll see all of your brights. I'm actually gonna keep it right over here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to pick a red. I want to pick a yellow. I want to pick a green and a blue. I'm going to pick a red, yellow, and blue. Like base red, base yellow, base blue. So let's find a good red. This looks like a good red right here. And I'm going to take the black outlines off after. They're just kind of a good reminder for me of where things are. So then I would have red, orange, then I would have orange, then I would have yellow, orange, and then I would have yellow. All right, so let's find, this looks like a good yellow right here. And you can kind of double check it. Like if you want to, remove some cyan from it and bring the yellow up to 100%. Then I would have yellow, green, green, blue, green, blue. All right, so let's find that, our base blue. We're gonna go with this for blue. So the reason why I picked these ones to start is now I need to find an orange that's definitely in between this yellow that I picked and this red that I picked. So I wouldn't go with like a dark brownish orange, because it would not look like I could get an orange like that by mixing these two colors. This is where you're gonna have to kind of use like your eyes and a little bit of like common sense in a way. So a good orange might be, that's a little too dark. Maybe this one. That looks like I could legitimately get that. And then what I like, this is how I like to come up with my red orange and my yellow orange. I'm going to colorize this block with my eyedropper the same as this orange. I'm just gonna open up my color picker from here, and I'm gonna drag it up a little bit closer to somewhere in between on the picker, where I'm in between a yellow, that 100% yellow, and the orange I just picked. So maybe this, and then I'll hit OK. So you can see how it's starting to fade to become that orange. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing here. I'm going to colorize this. I find it easier to go from orange to red than to go from red to orange personally. And this is where I find people have the hardest time making a correct red orange and making a correct red purple. So this is my system for doing it. Again, I'm going to eyedrop my orange, and select this one. And again, here's my red. I'm going to start to bring that down. And you can see what your original is. So if you get too close to red, it's going to look too red. That's way too red. It almost looks red. If you stay up here, it's too close to being orange still. Like somewhere, like right here, where you can see that difference, that's a good red orange. And if you want to, grab these ones and take off that outline so you can kind of see that nice progression. And again, it should be a nice progression. There shouldn't be these leaps and bounds from one color to the other. So we're gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna figure out a green that looks like it's been created from this blue. This is a pretty light blue. So I wouldn't have an extremely dark green like this. And I probably wouldn't have a really, really light green. I'd probably have something like one of these, honestly. Whoops. Something like this. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to colorize this block. And then I'm going to double click. And I need to get up towards the yellow. And I might need to manually kind of drag that up there and hit OK. And again, it might be easier to just kind of start to remove some of those outlines. And maybe make this bring it down a little bit. There we go. And then I am going to go from probably the blue to the green. Let's see. I need to start adding in some yellow. And again, you can even use your, start adding in yellow over here. So that way you're not messing with the CMYK breakdown of the blue. You're just adding yellow to the blue. And remove this outline. And this is too dark because here's my green, which is light. Here's my blue. This blue-green is like really dark. It doesn't look like it could have been made from those two. So I need to lighten this up. Maybe it's a little bit closer. I think my green needs a little bit more cyan in it is what is the problem. No, I'm gonna go back to that green. And it takes a little bit of tweaking. And then I need a purple as well. So my purple should look like this blue and this red made purple. So this is a nice bright purple because again, I have a bright blue and I have a bright red. So I wouldn't want a really, really dark purple. And I'm probably going to revisit these three, but for now, I'm just going to leave that right here. And, whoops, colorize this one. And you need to get it back down. So I need to I'm going to bring down some of the magenta in this one. And bring up some of the cyan. Maybe that's a pretty good one. And then again, red, purple, people always seem to have some issues with this one. So again, I'm going to copy my purple and I'm going to start to add some red in. So I'm going to go this way. Take off my outlines. And sometimes you're going to have to see it set up on the color wheel, and you might need to just kind of tweak it after that. And I feel like this might need to be a little bit brighter. All right, so I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to grab this entire thing right here, and I'm going to kind of drag it off to the side because I want to hold on to it, because if I need to tweak these colors, I don't want to start over. Next, what you're going to do is you're actually going to turn these into an art brush. So you want to go to Window and open up your brushes, and you're going to grab, again, this whole thing and drag it on top of your brushes and let go. And you want to tell it that you want it to be a new art brush, and hit OK. And it shows like an arrow. It's going to go from red to red purple. That's exactly what you want it to do. And hit OK. And there it is. It's in your brushes. So now all we have to do is draw our ellipses and paint it with our art brush. So I'm going to hold down Shift, start to draw my circle, and I don't want it to have a fill on the inside. Instead, I'm going to add that art brush as the border. And there is my color wheel. And if you want, what you can do is you can actually start to rotate it. So hit R and hit enter and put on the preview and just kind of turn it until you get the red at the top and the green at the bottom and hit OK. You just kind of center it on your page. So again, let's say that you need to, now let's like really take stock of this. I got my red, green, my blue, green, green, blue, blue, and orange. I've got my purple and yellow. And this actually looks pretty good. Now that I see the purple, go to the purple, red, go to the red. I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised with how that happened. And I'm not, I don't think that my blue purple is perfect. And so if you need to change one, what you can do is you can change it here, but you need to make a new art brush. So, no, oh, this blue purple is going to be the death of me. Because this purple is not very bright, but it's definitely the color that would be made with that blue and that that red. That like basically the color I have almost, but again, that's fine. And so I've kind of tweaked this. So again, I need a new art brush. I can delete the one that's in there, just delete it, and I can remove the stroke because I want to make sure I remove it off of the one that I've made it. But I can also make my like my shapes a little bit different. So let's say that I want to kind of do something funky like this. I can do something like this and then grab it, drag it in here. Again, art brush, hit OK, go back to my shape, apply this, and now I've got like kind of this cool thing going on with, yeah, the blue was a little bit off. Yeah, like I've got this cool thing going on where it looks kind of funky, So you can do kind of, you could do, whoops. You could do all circles, or you could do stars, or you could do arrows or something. You can kind of make some cool shapes, turn it into a brush, and do the same thing. All right, so next thing I need to do is I need to put this on all 4 of my pages. So I'm gonna do one, I click on it with my black arrow, hold down the Option key. You'll notice how I get those 2 arrows. If I click start dragging and then hit shift, I can make a carbon copy of it in this artboard. And again, make sure it's not, see how this one is a little bit bigger than all the other ones? And then I'm gonna grab both of these, hit Option again, start to drag it down, make a copy down here. Probably bring these ones down a bit too. And then I like to go in and grab my labels right from in here so I have them spelled correctly. And this is part of your design. So your text should be designed in this part. Don't just use Myriad Pro because it defaults to that and leave it like that. Actually put some thought into the design of your text. Here we go. So maybe I'll do big fish. Got complimentary. I'm going to just make a quick copy. The text boxes. And I'll do triadic, analogous, and split complementary. And again, I want to be aware of my size because split complementary, that's a pretty large word. So I want everything to be consistent. And then I need to go in and I need to label these. So this is how, again, there's a couple of different ways that you can label them. Maybe you want to use the star tool, and I'm going to star the red and star green. And then I'm gonna use my pen tool or even just your line tool, hold down shift, connect them. And make sure everything's nice and aligned. So there's my complementary scheme. Do the same thing over here, maybe. I'm gonna make a copy because again, consistency. Make a copy of my star, and maybe for my triadic, I want to do red, yellow, and blue. There we go. So from center of the star to center. Oh, come on. This would be better with the pen tool, actually. Center of the star to center of the star to center of the star and close up the path. And this was, how many points did I make this? 4. Do the same thing over here. Start that at 4 points. And then I have analogous. So I want to go across. For analogous, you should go across at least 3. 3 colors within the color wheel. Grab my star. Whoops, not the line. Not the line. Come on. Bring it to the front. There we go. Grab my star. And I would say stick to 3. Don't do any more than 3. And again, I'll probably be easiest with my pen tool. Again, go from the center of the star to the center of the star to the center of the star. And make that 4. And then for split complementary, that's where you go across and then move it 1 over and move it 1 over. So I'm going to go from red, and then I'll drag it down to the green and move it over here and make a copy and move that one over there. And again, with the pen tool, the easiest one for this, center of the star to the center of the star, close it off. There we go. And honestly, I probably would have made my stars a little bit bigger because I feel like the lines are kind of messing up the stars here, but you get the idea. So then I'm going to save it. I'm going to save the Illustrator version of it. I want to make sure I'm naming it correctly. So I'm going to grab my naming convention, go over to my Mod 11 folder to DES 114, week 1, oops, assignment 1. You can see I have my old one in here. I'm going to name it the AI version, make sure it's formatted as an Illustrator version. And then I'll do a file save as, and I'm going to name it as a PDF file and save it. And I can just replace the one from last mod. and save that PDF. Close it out, and then double check it before you upload it. Make sure everything looks correct. And you should have 4 different pages from each artboard saves as a page. So we've got complimentary, triadic, again, 3 in between, analogous, and split complementary. So we went across and went over and over. So that is what you will upload for your assignment. Go to submit assignment, choose your file. Again, this is where finding those files, knowing what everything's named makes it easier. And submit it. And double check, you can see, all right, submission details, there it is. If you want to double check it as well in your grades, if you go into your grade book, it will show that it is submitted. Right here, you can see if it gives you that little piece of paper right there, that shows that it's been submitted. All right, so again, I hope that this was helpful for putting together your color wheel this week. Just a reminder, you're going to set up your file in your assessment the same exact way that we just set it up for your assignment. You're still using Illustrator, you're still using artboards. You know, where we used 4 artboards for the assignment, you'll use 3 artboards. Where we set it up as a 10 by 11, you'll set it up as an 8 by 8. Just remember to label your color schemes for each of the pages, because sometimes people's analogous schemes can start to look a little monochromatic and I can't tell the difference. So you want to make sure that you have things labeled so I can appropriately grade it. I don't want to be guessing. And then again, you'll also save it as an Illustrator file and then save it as a PDF and upload only the PDF version for this week. So I know that this was kind of a lot to go over, but you know, a lot of interesting stuff. You know, color theory is super interesting. It's really going to help you in, you know, further assignments and further classes when you're trying to figure out, you know, what best, what best ways to color your text. What, you know, why should your text be this color on top of this color background? These are all the things that you're going to fall back on when you're trying to figure out different layout ideas and different layouts and why layouts are going to work or not work. And I do suggest, kind of looking ahead, and we can take a quick look right now to the different things that we're going to be doing this month. Because like I said, we have a lot of really great projects this month. So in week 2, you'll be given a logo and you need to colorize it. Then for your assessment, you're going to be creating a poster. Do you know how many posters I've created as a graphic designer? Many. Then going into week 3, you're going to, there we go. You're going to be creating a trifold brochure. This is one of my favorite assignments to do with you guys is week 3. I do so much show and tell on week 3, so if you can come to that one, I definitely suggest it. And then you're also going to be creating a sign. Again, all different things that you will do time and time again as a graphic designer. I mean, I can pull so many portfolio pieces that I've done at my old job of trifolds and posters and signs and other things, you know, that this is why this is one of my favorite classes to teach. All right, before we end for today, does anybody have any questions? And if not, that's fine. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. I'm totally about to lose my voice. All right, great. Well, thank you so much for being able to make it today. Again, if you run into anything, any questions or concerns between today and tomorrow, please feel free to pop into the multi-session. I am going to try to get in touch with everyone tomorrow during the multi-session, so you might get a text from me welcoming you to class. If you haven't yet, please make sure that you respond to the email that I sent out this morning, so that way I know our lines of communication are open. And again, don't forget, do your discussion post early this week if you can. Have some fun with it. Have some fun with your abstract designs. I see so many cool abstract designs in this course for week 1. It's a really fun assessment to do, and have some fun with your color wheel too. And I hope that, this little demo for making the color wheel is a little bit easier than trying to get out the pen tool and draw a color wheel. I figured this might be a little bit easier for you guys. All right, so again, I look forward to seeing anyone who needs some extra help in the multi-session tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a great day. All right, bye.